A lot of breaking news tonight on this Thanksgiving Day weekend, so let's get right to it with my political panel, Republican strategist and Fox News contributor Brad Blakeman, and syndicated radio show host and former aide to Senator Chuck Schumer, Chris Hahn. All right, guys. Brad Blakeman. Okay, so Fidel Castro dies. Was he in charge anyway, Brad?
No, Fidel wasn't in charge. He was ailing for some time. His brother's in charge, including a whole host of other relatives of the Castro family.
Were they all communists too?
Of course.
Okay.
Look,
so what's going to change,
Very little
Brad?
is going to change.
What's
very
going
little
to
is going to change. You know what? It remains to be seen, but I don't think much, because these guys have been hanging on to power for decades. They're not gratuitously going to give it up, and we need a strong president like Donald Trump to not give away the store, especially in our own hemisphere, and revisit some of these awful executive orders that the president has done in order to cozy up to dictators.
Okay, so why did the president need to cozy up to the dictators, Chris?
Oh, I don't think he needed to cozy up to the dictator.
Well, what did he get out of it?
And let me just point one thing out. What Dave Avella said in the last block: Democrats were not happy about Fidel Castro's reign. We're very happy to see him gone, and we want to see more people gone from that
President Barack Obama didn't sound that way. He said he wouldn't even criticize the guy.
Well, the overwhelming majority of the business community wants to see Cuba opened up to commerce in this hemisphere, so they have another place to do business, another place to trade. This actually gives President-elect Trump an opportunity to kind of walk back some of the things he said during the campaign. We'll see how that happens.
What back? Maybe President Barack Obama ought to walk back what he said about letting history decide how we're going to see. Look, this guy has incarcerated, he's killed tens of thousands, if not 100,000 people. He was a dictator. He was brutal. He's got people incarcerated. And when we resumed relations, we didn't even call for the release of those people.
Thank God, Judge. Tonight, instead of being in the presidential palace, he's in a small cell in hell somewhere getting tortured. Good for him.
Oh, I'm glad you get to say that. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about, what's with the Clinton campaign. Chris, I'll start with you and then go to Brad. Why are they jumping in on this recount? Even though lawyers said we don't see anything unusual, but we're going to go in there to make sure it's fair. What are you, they judges now?
So from the people I talked to close to the campaign said that, look, I think they're there mostly to put a check on Jill Stein to make sure she doesn't cause a constitutional crisis. There's not a lot of trust from mainstream Democrats for Jill Stein. So I don't think the Clinton campaign's in there for any dubious purpose. I think they're there to kind of make sure that the process moves smoothly and it gets over with quickly. We know, everyone knows, it's going to be very hard for her to make up the margin in Pennsylvania, even if she makes up the margin in Michigan and in Wisconsin. So we want to make sure we avoid any crisis here.
So, Brad, if I understand what Chris is saying is the Clinton campaign doesn't really trust this 1%er Jill Stein, so they're going to go back on her word when she says, let's give Donald Trump a chance and look toward the future. So they're going to go in there and judge it all. You know what I think? I think that what they said was something about we're going to make sure the Russians weren't involved. What do you think, Brad?
Look, I think this smells real bad, and I think Jill Stein is a straw woman for the Clinton campaign. This is nonsense that somehow Hillary is just making sure that she's being honest. There is no honesty here. And by the way, Judge, you know how much it costs to run a recount. Where are they getting the money to run the recount? She couldn't even run her campaign, and suddenly she has millions of dollars for a recount? Look, I would ask Chris to find out which one of his Democratic friends is bankrolling this recount. Is it George Soros?
Brad,
is it somebody else? Who is it?
No, Brad, you know that there are a lot of people very upset about this election on the left, and they were very susceptible to raise money from her. Yeah, and we accept that. I think that most mainstream Democrats accept that, willing to give him the benefit of the doubt until he doesn't deserve it anymore.
He doesn't
so why
deserve
doesn't Clinton get on the phone and put a stop to it?
He had 306 electoral votes. She had 232. Even if they switch Wisconsin and Michigan, he still wins. And they're not going to switch Pennsylvania because there's no 70,000 votes that are going to flip the other way. Let me tell you what the rumor is. The rumor is they want to go after the absentee ballots because most of those are Republican, and that's really involving in the biggest number, the elderly and the disabled. How's that for the Democrats?
The time to challenge the election results is long past due. Those who hesitate are lost. I don't think that the Clinton campaign is primarily involved with this. I do think that Jill Stein is using this to raise money for herself and her organization. And I think that's why the Clinton campaign and mainstream Democrats are going to make sure there is a smooth process that is not delayed by Ms. Stein.
Well, why didn't they say that, Brad? If they're there.
Well, because they wanted to go on, Judge, clearly, and Hillary Clinton could have put a stop to this in 2 seconds by going on television, holding a press conference and saying she has no part in this. She wants it to stop. The election results have been certified, as far as she's concerned, by the election that will be certified soon by the electors. And this is nonsense. She accepts the verdict of the American people, and let's move on.
Well, hey, just because we're working on Thanksgiving weekend doesn't mean she's working on Thanksgiving weekend, Brad. So give her a break. Let's see what she says on Monday or Tuesday.
Who? Hillary?
Hillary.
Give her a break. She jumped into the fray today. I'm not giving her a break.
She did not. She did not jump into the fray today.
The Clinton campaign would not have gotten into the fray without Miss Clinton's permission.
Absolutely.
Come on, Chris.
We'll see about that.
Come on.
We'll see about that.
All right. It's ridiculous. And you know what? It is advancing the division that Donald Trump is clearly, especially when he says he wants to help her heal. What he's trying to do is bring the country together, and she's in the middle of this divisive, let's split everybody apart. But Brad Blakeman, Chris Hahn, that's why we want to hear from you. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. A look back at Donald Trump's historic campaign coming up. Plus, I get a prominent millennials take on President-elect Donald Trump and the transition so far.